All right, we'll get rocking and rolling. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you. Um, we have a uh, decent amount of stuff to go over, not overwhelming amount. A lot of this is going to be refresher side, a couple changes. This is a non-rule change year in terms of NCAA, which is what our tier one, as we call them, prep schools play exclusively. The tier twos and threes, we do have a rule change as we introduce, and they have agreed to play with a non-shot clock modifier. So we're going to go through that as well. And then we're going to go through the exam. So we only have a handful of slides. Um, the chat is available if it's easier to throw something in there. Both Dick and Vernon are going to monitor those. I'm just going to hit mute on everybody. And but if you have a brief, quick question or a quick point, or if something went too fast, feel free if you want to unmute yourself. Again, where the goal tonight is to keep moving and to get to the 41 question exams. That way we can go through it all. But for this recording, to try to keep it within the frame of 45 minutes or under, as we only have about 15 slides to go through. So that's the goal. And the itinerary is, again, we're going to go through the points of emphasis and the rules differences that are major. The test is also going to do that as well. They focus on differences in the rule books versus just knowing, rules in certain pages and examples and one-off ARs. Again, we're going to go through shot clock versus no shot clock, and then we're also going to go over the exam as we said. So with that said, we'll keep it moving here. And so just to reiterate everything we talked in the clinic, again, our theme is owning it. NCAA and our prep school rules is no different. What we generally will see, very slight gripe, if I want to call it that. Our slight gripe is similar to what we see in the NFHS, just more so in NCAA, of where we have members who don't do a lot of prep school rules. And again, I know it is difficult. I've told my own story, and I know there's thousands of them out there where we have to know sometimes not only two rule books, but also three rule books or more in any given day, or modifiers when we're doing youth. And that's a lot to try to get, straight. So we're not asking you to memorize absolutely everything in the book. We're just simply asking you to remember to go over things, remember that there are materials available, remember to try to own it and look up the answers and try to gain a base level understanding. Before you simply ask us, we are always going to answer your questions. Similar to a lot of you ask me, where is the Zoom link? How do I get onto Zoom? Or is Zoom a phone call? I will always answer you. I might give you a little bit of guff, but I will make sure that you get on and we get you there. But the key is the materials are available. There are a lot of them. And what you also need to do too is make sure you're owning it in terms of your crews being able to talk before the game. And so if you are not confident and it's your first prep school game in a while, you need to tell your crew that and maybe ask your crew to get there 5 or 10 minutes early and get in the parking lot and have a little conversation about it. So again, so that way we can make sure we're applying the correct rules and we're understanding the situations. And a lot of the NCAA versus NFHS rules deal a lot of the times with going a little bit faster or moving the game along, and not having whistles and things of that. So that becomes a game mechanic, and understanding that and being able to apply it is really key. So we're going to split this into two. So the top and what you see within the 2025-2026 NCAA rulebook is going to be, these are the points of emphasis similar to the NFHS rulebook. I don't necessarily agree with them in terms of what we need to teach you. I'm not saying that these five aren't important, but again, we're going to focus on the other areas, and what you said in the poll was the bottom three. So I'm actually going to start there. You as the
Hey
membership
Rob,
said, go ahead.
quick, just sorry, a quick point
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
do you want the recording? You're gonna record?
Yes, yep. We are going on the recording. Let me just triple
You've got
check.
it recording, Rob.
Yep, we are.
All
We're
right.
good. Nope, I
Okay.
appreciate that. Thank you. And so again, we are, what you asked for was the 6080 shot clock. the no shot clock rules, and that's, I think, Fred, I just saw your chat. We are going to go through what that modification is, and it's up on the Google Drive. And again, we'll make sure that everybody gets that. And then crease were the three that you have asked for as membership. The five that the NCAA has cited as the most important for this season was the pregame coaching meeting. Again, we're not going to mandate within the actual rule book. It says you need to be out there 30 minutes beforehand and meeting with the coaches. We're not going to mandate that. It's again going to be based on your crew chief and your crew. How much time you have to get to the game is not all games are created equal, and you're also moving around a lot of the times, especially on Saturdays. So we understand all that. Sportsmanship, pre and post game, they want emphasized. Screening has a really, really big push this year. They are also concerned in the NCAA game about warding off specifically on loose balls or when the ball is not in a player's stick, of using the free hand to your advantage in scrums and box outs and things of that nature. So I'm just bringing it up. And then we are not dealing with this on the CLOA level of goal nets and quote unquote illegal goal nets of having patches or things hung at a certain size part of the mesh. Is that as long as they have a regulation 6x6 net and there's no holes in the net, we are going to play the game. But the NCAA wanted to make sure that was a point of emphasis. So I'm simply just bringing it up because it is in the rule book. To reiterate, this is the same substitution area as we have in high school. This is a much better graphic than I had in the clinic. And so this is actually the same graphic we used in last year's slides for this webinar. So I'm going to reuse it, and I tweaked it a tiny bit. But again, we have this idea of this is called the loading zone or the secondary coaching area. We still have a secondary line. 5 yards off of the mid gives us the 45, and then 10 yards gives us the 40. So all players should be behind or to the left. If you're the team on the left here, the left of the 40 or the right of the 40, not behind next to the table area whatsoever, and definitely not up by the 45s. So then we have three X's in three different colors. The green player is good, green meaning good. And so that player is good in terms of where they can stand. They are fine. If it is pre-face off, we do not want the pink player in that area. We want to back past the green player and stacking up. If they're coming on for a substitution area or a substitution and they're coming through the table or the coaching area to get there, they have to get through someplace. So the ping player can be moving towards that sub and then going on for that imminent sub. But in terms of when we're ready for a face-off, we want all the players in the green area or over, and same thing over here. And the orange player just again gives you a visual of where we want that player sitting or kneeling when they have a penalty. And so back further towards that line, closer to the table, not right up on that sideline is what we would like. So again, just a visual of where you can see. And we're sending this out to all of our coaches so they're also aware, but again, is in the rule book, just minus the X's. Helmets have not changed this year, and they have not changed at the high school level either. This is a significant rules difference in terms of what occurs at the prep school and NCAA level. It is a technical foul. So when a helmet comes off, we're immediately blowing a whistle. The player needs to go off no matter what. At both levels, they still go off. Similar to an injury, we're waiting until the next dead ball. What that means is that there needs to be a second whistle. So the first whistle that restarts play and a second whistle then killing that live ball play, which then creates that dead ball scenario. Where you can see, I have yet to see it happen. But what the loophole that coaches keep talking about is, can they burn a timeout immediately in order to buy that player back? The answer is no. 1 second needs to come off the clock. So if it's the offensive team, and let's say the attackman's helmet came off, if they're awarded, let's say, the ball because it was a penalty, and I'll get into that, but they're awarded the ball, 1 second goes off the clock, they call timeout. Now they can buy that person back into the game, but that 1 second has to come off. Again, it is a technical foul, meaning that if team B is losing the helmet and it is a loose ball, the ball is awarded to team A, similar to a loose ball push or an offside or a hold. It's a standard technical foul. If Team B has possession and their player loses the helmet, they lose the ball and the ball goes to Team A. You're waiting until that player gets off of the field. If Team A has the ball and Team B loses the helmet, meaning a defenseman, we actually throw a flag and it's a penalty on that defenseman for losing their helmet. And Team B and that player serves 30 seconds, still has to wait until that next dead ball. So that can be a tricky scenario where they cannot release their penalty if there is no whistle. So if those 30 seconds go by and no second whistle, that player cannot sub in freely. If it occurs, it's another technical foul. And we just go based on where the ball is. So it might be another penalty. We might lose the ball, but we're chasing that player off. In the event it is illegal contact that causes that helmet to come off. So A loses the helmet and B hits them. Player A goes off. Player B serves time for that hit, whatever we deemed was that personal foul. Team A is given the ball, and we're calling it the regular possession. So it would be in their right offensive half because it was a time serving foul, just outside of the attack area. The shot clock resets on all of these cases because it's a technical foul. And so in this case, it'd be the same thing where it now becomes a flag down. We either go to 60 or 80, depending on when that whistle was blown. Same thing on the helmet coming off, where we're going to reset the shot clock. 9 times out of 10, it's going to the other team. So it's going to be an 80. But in that event where if it stays, and we have the flag, we're going to base it on when that whistle blew. The other quick points on this too, and again, this part has not changed, is that because we're ushering that player off, just like an injury, we give both teams a free substitution or our old horn, right? As you don't have to put up two hands, but that's kind of our old horn signal, is that we have a full stop sign here. Everybody gets a chance to go off and sub freely, and again, under that normal 20 seconds of time frame that we have. What did change this year, it was a simple wording scenario, is that in the event, if the shot is released before the official recognizes that the helmet has come off, and again, excuse me, the helmet before it comes off, before the shot is released and the official recognizes that helmet's off, we have no goal. If the ball, again, is shot and the official does not recognize that the helmet came off before that, we could have a good goal. But again, we should be having at minimum one person watching the shooter, so we should be seeing that helmet come off instantaneously, to be honest with you. So again, that's a slight wording change. It used to be before the helmet had to come off before it broke the plane of the goal, which is impossible to tell because the lead is watching the goal and the trail is watching the shooter. So how do you tell what came first? And the answer was you couldn't. So now it's when you recognize it came off. And again, if that helmet comes off before the shot is released, if it comes off afterwards, we're going to allow that goal in that scenario. I'll pause, make sure we have any chats, John or Dick. Good.
There was one question which I answered in the chat, which was if a player is serving a penalty for the lost helmet, can another player go into the box to serve? And the answer is yes, when the penalty is about to expire. So if there'd been no, dead ball and somebody else wants to go in when the penalty expires, that's fine. But they shouldn't go into the box till it's close to expiring.
Yeah, we've come up, we
Rob,
still can't figure out where we came up, but at some point we just came up with the unwritten rule of, 10 seconds has always been kind of the standard in our heads, and we can't really verify that, right? But again, the idea of, we want that player, serving and going in the best they can. Obviously, if they're injured, they can go out at any point. But again, having that, new player sub in around the 10-second mark without actually timing it is more than okay.
quick question, Rob.
Yeah.
Tackman has the ball. He shoots the ball. It's out of his cross. He gets hit legally. His helmet comes off. Ball goes in the net. We have a good goal. The Tackman now has to go off for his helmet off. A dead
Correct.
ball foul, simultaneous. What's the live ball foul? What are we doing?
Yeah, goals good, and we're just sending that attackman off because now we have essentially a good goal, and I would consider that a dead ball technical, right? If we're assuming that the shot was taken before the helmet came off, we're not going to be able to determine the exact sequence to that point, right? So again, if that attackman ends up with on the ground, let's say legally, helmet then comes off. We've seen that happen, to be honest with you, a decent amount is that the actual ground contact causes the helmet to come off. We're sending that attackman off. The goal's good, no further penalty to that point. That player's just got to go off, but a dead ball technical. So nobody's time serving in that scenario.
Yeah, the question, Rob, was whether there would be a face-off.
Yes, I would go face off. John, would you agree on that one?
Yeah, usually we don't
I see Mr. Murphy head nodding, so that's
call
all
dead
I
ball. We
need
don't
in my
usually,
life.
yeah, we don't usually call dead ball technical fouls.
Yeah, is the same thing again. The purpose of this rule, and this is a little tough to wrap your head around sometimes. The actual purpose of this rule is to actually punish the player whose helmet came off. That's the real purpose of this. They want the helmet attached correctly. So they don't want the other team necessarily benefiting. They just want to teach that player to keep their helmet on. So by taking them off, coach should get in their ear. Maybe again, it's a smaller amount of time left in the game or in the half, and you need that attackman out there. And now they have to wait or burn a timeout. So you're only penalizing that team versus advantaging the other team, if that makes sense. But that's generally where the rule came from. They just want the players to have the helmets on correctly, more so than actually giving the other team an advantage when it comes off, if that kind of makes sense.
Rob, is that true if there's more than just a technical foul? Something very violent that knocks his helmet off, he scores a goal, then you have a
Yeah,
regular
correct. Yep, is the same thing. We can go, one, two, or three based on
and
that,
no face
especially
off.
if it's head contact. It depends when that foul occurred to that point. If it's a live ball foul, we'd have a face off, just a man down face off. And if it's a dead ball foul, meaning it's late, and that's where the NCAA book has opened up a little bit, where especially on crease hits, they want to crack down on where if it's, just after the goal scored, meaning it's, I don't want to use the word, but at the same time that the goal is scored, they're kind of looking for that dead ball call to kind of give that extra input into, hey, we're not going to allow you to take cheap shots on that attackman. And so again,
So
it's
it'd
it's
be
another tool we can use.
a personal foul with a face with no face off.
Correct. Yep. And the
Okay.
same thing, we don't want right to that point, don't make up the dead ball. But if it's very close and you're kind of thinking, hey, that was late and high, and the ball might have been in the net, we can go a dead ball foul, no face off. The team who scored the goal counts. They get awarded the ball at the center X, and that player who had their helmet still comes off. So that's a lot of things, but that is what they're generally looking for. Super
Rob,
good
just
question on that. Go ahead.
one point on the helmet coming off. So on the situation where they take the shot and the ball's already been released and then the helmet comes off afterwards, I would say to rule that as a dead ball, that the helmet came off after it was in the goal. It's such a short period of time there. If you saw the helmet came off before he took the shot, you're going to blow the whistle and it's not going to be a goal. But if the shot's already been taken, then rule the helmet came off after it was in the goal. And in that case, you don't have to worry about it being a technical foul because the rule book says that it's a technical during a live ball scenario within the scrimmage area, anytime a player's helmet comes off. So if it's dead ball, it's not live ball. He's still gonna, you're probably still gonna make him come off and sit out, but I wouldn't assess the technical. That would be my take on it.
I agree on that. So crease play to then move on to crease play. Crease play has not changed. Same rule, nothing different this year. We have, and this is again in terms of when we're playing a 60-80 visible shot clock. We have all schools should have a goal mouth at this point. From our reports, almost every school had them, and every school should have them this year. Again, we have a goal mouth. If we do not have a goal mouth, we're not going to be able to play dive on the current rules, so we shouldn't allow dives, period. If that happens, and then let us know, let Dave know, let myself know when that occurs. But again, we have, a different set than what we're used to. So this again is the goal mouth. So if you're watching any college games, we saw it, or again prep last year. And so if we have, either crease or mouth before the ball enters, we have no goal. Person touches the line, lands in beforehand, doesn't matter how they got there. We have no goal if they're touching before. If they touch the crease after the goal is scored, we're okay. They're allowed to go into the crease after the goal is scored. And I'm purposely saying that twice and slowly. In the event that player is in the goal mouth after the ball enters the net, we have no goal. And now we have a lot of fun caveats because that would be too simple if we just kept it at those three things. But again, if we have them in before, it's no goal. We have them in the crease after. And again, the crease, I don't know if you can see my mouse on it, but again, is the circle that is on the outside. And then the goal mouth, if we look at that middle picture, is that half semicircle that the goalie is standing in. That is the goal mouth. And so again, if that offensive player is in the goal mouth after the ball enters, it is no goal. And so our couple scenarios, the offensive player is in the mouth under their own volition. It's just a technical foul. It's just a crease violation. We just point down to the crease. We might have to wave a goal off. We are then going to award the ball to team B. So if the goalie picks it up, we can go. Do not be in a hurry to go immediately. And a reason why we say that is that if an attackman is at that goalie's feet, we don't want that goalie tangled up and potentially getting hurt. Allow that attackman to get out. Don't give him 2 minutes to get out, but give him a couple seconds to get out of the crease. Even if the goalie's jumping and screaming, I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready to that scenario. We also have to make sure that none of his teammates are within 5 yards. We can start, again, the play on both levels where the goalie has the ball in the crease, that attackman is there, and as long as they don't make contact with that goalie or with the ball, we're good and we don't throw a flag, but we can restart the play. The second sign to stay on crease is, again, we have legal defensive contact and A goes in the goal mouth. So let's say a hit from the side or the front, and that player falls and touches the goal mouth, including the line of the goal mouth. No goal, crease violation, goes to team B. Same scenario. Goalie takes it, defenseman takes it, we can restart the play. Now, if we have a legal defensive contact, either by technical or personal means, doesn't matter if it's a push, a hold, a high hit, a late hit, a cross check, doesn't matter what it is, we can have a goal, right? And so the goal occurs, again, if the ball is in the net before we get that crease contact. So we kind of go back to that other one, especially if we feel that defensive player, that is the reason why they got in there. Now, again, a couple caveats. I'm going to go slow. We could have the goal is good. And then again, we can have a scenario where, again, player scores. The most common example of this, player on the crease catches the ball, throws it in the net. One Mississippi goes by, and that defender cleans that player out, and that player lands in the goal mouth. We now have a good goal. We consider that a dead ball, so we have no face-off and a time-serving foul. Our directive has been at the college level, they want that to be a multi-minute foul. They want that hit out of the game. When they created this rule a few years ago, you saw defensemen doing it a lot. Awesome. It is no goal if that attackman lands in the goal mouth, so I'm going to put him there in any means necessary to get this goal off of the board. So they do not want that. They're not allowed a free cheap shot. And again, that goal still counts. The offensive team gets the ball, and that player goes for multiple minutes, 2 or more is what we're looking for.
Non-releasable.
Non-releasable. The last part of this, and this is tough, this is very tough, I will be the first to admit it. If we feel we're not using a specific word that starts with a P and ends in an ATH, but if the offensive player has a direct or deliberate contact with the goalie in the goal mouth, we can also penalize the attackman for getting in there. That can be a 1, a 2, or a 3 minute. It could be non-releasable, or it can be releasable. I know you're confused because I am too. What I am telling you at the prep school level, I'm not making comments on other levels of the game, but at the prep school level, if you feel that offensive player puts himself into the goal mouth directly or deliberately hitting the goalie, 1, 2, or 3 minutes, depending on severity, non-releasable. Don't even go the other route. Just make it non-releasable. Just make your life easy. Coach,
And
there's
and by
deliberate
rule,
contact with the goalie. Go ahead.
and by rule, it's an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. There's an AR on this, under
Correct.
unsportsmanlike conduct. So the easiest thing is non-releasable, unsportsmanlike. Everybody understands because almost all the unsportsmanlikes are non-releasable. Just keep it simple.
In the very last part of this, we haven't really seen it in prep schools. You've seen it a few times, and we haven't seen it this year in terms of anything to my knowledge. But we can have penalties on both teams, and the way we can kind of think of that is that that offensive player is driving parallel to the goal line and on goal line extended, goes straight into that goal line, makes direct and deliberate contact with the goalie. And as they're maybe leaving their feet, the defenseman also cross checks them. So it now compounds the issue. You can have multiple penalties on this play. I'm not telling you what to do based on that. The general consensus has been you can go and do an uneven penalty time scenario where you're trying to get the worst offender. We've also got guidance that that doesn't need to occur as well, where if you feel it's really bad, you can give 2 minutes on both, right? They're both live ball fouls in that scenario. And now we're getting into scenarios of, again, who is entitled to the ball at that scenario. I would generally say give it to the defensive team because again, that it is that if you are penalizing that offensive player for that deliberate contact, you're thinking that crease violation was that initial foul. So the ball is now on B, and then you can go through all your toggles. Just give it to that defensive team. They're the one who created a lot of the chaos that generally occurred. The easier way to get out of it, and I'm not saying it is a gold standard, but an easier way to get out of it is you assess different amounts of minutes on those players, and then you give it to the team with the lesser penalty time. We'll pause there. Again, this rule has not changed. This is the same, and this is for 60, 80 shot clocks only.
Hey Rob, quick question. If the goalie passes it out of the mouth and then gets a deliberate contact by the offensive player, is it a flag down slow whistle?
In terms of describe, so we're resetting the play, the goalie's got the ball and they're throwing it out.
Yeah, and then there's deliberate contact in the mouth by the offensive player.
You're meaning they're just touching the goalie in that scenario?
Yeah, but it's deliberate. They made contact with them.
Think of these are specifics on dives.
Oh, dives. Okay.
Yep, you're good.
Got it.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm getting your question right. Yeah, the same thing is if, it's going to be interference on that. So if the ball is still within the cylinder at that time, we're going to have a play on, right? And if I'm just thinking if the attackman's got to stick out and touches the goalie, right, on that clearing pass, if they complete it, we might be over. If not, we're going to award that free clear on a goalie interference.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep. Okay. I'm just making sure I got your question. That is
Rob,
a good one.
I
Yep,
think
go ahead.
if you give even time, I think you got to give it to the ball to the offense because they had possession. They commit if you're going to give them a minute for going into the keeper and you're giving the other guy a cross check and they're even times. I think you got to give it to the offense, but I think you want to avoid giving equal penalty time if you possibly can in a situation like that.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, is the same thing. I think unequal penalty time. The guidance has been, and again, this is a little outdated from last year and the year prior, is they want the onus on that attackman to not get in there. So that's why they want to flip the ball the other way. Again, I think I don't want to call it an easy out, right? Is again, if you see something egregious, you need to penalize it as such, right? But I think the easier way of looking at it without trying to make up a call is to try to differentiate who was worse in that scenario, give a 2 and a 1 or a 3 and a 2, and again, you get out of a lot of the other stuff that comes down the river, if that makes sense,
That
in
makes
my
total
opinion.
sense, and I think that's what you should do. Yep, I agree with you.
Rob, quick question. You go through that last scenario where you've got the illegal hit by the defense, the attackman drives, shoots, scores, and deliberately hits the goalie. At that point, you've got a good goal, and then you've got to adjudicate penalties, correct? Do you have a face-off because you're sending 2 men out?
You would generally not have a good goal. If you're going to penalize that attackman, you're not going to have a good goal. And that's where it kind of goes back where you're still going to have a goal mouth violation on that point.
Even though the defenseman cross-checks him into the crease goal mouth, you're not going to.
Yes, and so that idea is you're not if the I'm trying not to use the PATH word here, is if you feel that attackman did everything correctly and the only reason he hit the goalie was because of the defenseman, we should be penalizing the defenseman, not the attackman. On the flip side, if we're penalizing the attackman, we can't have a good goal.
Okay.
Hey,
It's
so
kind of the easier flow chart. Go ahead, Al.
Rob, I'm sorry. So again, you're not using the PATH word for what reason? Because wasn't that part of the whole judgment of if this guy was even going to get close to the goal mouth or not?
Yes, it was taken out this year, is that is
Right.
no longer being used. And so
So do
I'm
we
trying to
still
dance
look at,
around it a bit.
I know, but I guess my question would be, do we still look at the direction the person was going, and it's like, hey, he was going in that goal mouth no matter what,
Yep.
you know?
Look at the easier way to phrase, and this is both to
Sure.
Ted's question and yours, is look at the action of the offensive player. If he is directly going to make contact, if his actions will cause a direct or deliberate contact, we're going to have no goal. And that kind of then goes to John's point. I think that becomes a crease violation, and then you're not going to allow that defenseman to take an extra shot, regardless of what happens. So we're penalizing the attackman first in my mind, and then we're also getting that secondary cause that created the scenario to be even worse. And to that, the larger point is if you're then going and replaying the scenario in your head, that's where you should be able to differentiate. Was the offensive more in the wrong or the defensive player more in the wrong? And then we go from there, if that makes sense. And if you feel the offensive player wasn't in the wrong, we can have a good goal. We penalize the defenseman, could be live ball or dead ball, and then we go from there. If we feel the offensive player was in the wrong, no goal, penalize them. I would generally say you're probably penalizing that offensive player more than you're penalizing the defensive player, in my opinion, because you've already identified them as the quote unquote more wrong. It's just weird that they're making us do that, but that's what they're making us do. So the transition a bit. This is old hat, but I still like putting it up there. A lot of people say I didn't ever see this, which is scary, but I still like doing that. So again, just to go over the lineup. So again, you're getting your field judge against the visitors, their umpires. Try to get them around the wing line the best you can and bring them out to the referee. Referee can stand on either side. There's no mandate on what side. I personally like to stand on the right side when looking at the benches, right? So where the U is as referee, because it's less steps, because it puts the referee in the correct spot, it puts the umpire in the right spot, and the field judge needs to get down to the wing line. So again, when we then see the lineup, this is what US Lacrosse had. And again, you're kind of flipping your spots. I personally don't like that, but I know some football guys also like facing the scoreboard, regardless of where the scoreboard is, whatever floats your boat. But again, just to get into that, field judge goes to the wing, umpire goes to lead left or the helper position, and your ref goes to the face-off. Wherever you're most comfortable, just make sure it's the same for your captain's meeting, your coin toss, your face-off meeting, and eventually your lineup. Stand in the same spot. It makes it look clean and nice on that. Where just again show you coverage in 3-man. I know we did a lot of video on the clinic that was 3-man, so we got a lot of different looks. But when we're settled, right, we should be having a triangle where John and I's note is where we see a lot of times trail is back really far, even in a 3-man. Trail is also really hugged against this sideline. Go again, my base rule is always go where you feel most comfortable, right? I don't want you in tight if you don't feel like you can get out of there. But again, if it's settled and ball is over on single side, you can move in a little bit. Same thing, and you can yo-yo. We don't want you glued to the sideline with the coaches either, because coaches will continue to chew your ear off. So make sure you get, away from them a little bit, come up a little bit slow. Trail, your job is the entire rest of the 2/3 where the ball isn't. So you can be a little bit late, make sure any changes. I always say clear one pylon at a time, start at the back pylon, move to the front pylon, try to jog in to then your spot. Same idea if the ball gets to the midline, and sometimes this is also the beginning before we get settled. Trail can be nice on that midline, watch for over and back or any offsides or things of that nature, and also be able to cover the goal. Lead can get a little bit wider to make sure that they're seeing things. Single can also stay wide. And then the last one, we added this blue circle for emphasis. What we also saw watching a couple of videos from last year of 3-man games or others is sometimes the single like just standing in one spot. So if we look at that settle coverage, single is a lot of times really, really, really wide or up. And so I always say, and this got asked in the clinic, I like 15 or 10 as my immediate home base as a single. If we have football lines, it gives us a really good idea of where we are. But again, you're going to have to move within the circle and yo-yo in and out depending on where the ball is. But also, we should, as lead, be getting down to that end line when the ball is there and when the shot goes out of bounds. So a single, we're also going to not only come in, but we might go back down to that goal line or even a little bit underneath it. So as I said in the bottom, a yo-yo is not just in and out in terms of sideline to goal, but can also be up and down based on where the lead is, as what we see. So again, you need to help coverage is when that lead has the ball behind the cage. Single becomes that goal line coverage. And then when lead gets back, we're transferring it off. And single's also watching the shooter. A lot of times this is your best spot to be in. Again, depending on where the ball is. And what we also see, the other kind of quick pro tip is, again, we have lefty attackmen in the world. There's still a lesser amount than righty attackmen. So sometimes the single has a better chance because that's the left-handed side of the offense. The single has a better chance to come in. Lead might get dragged out a lot because righties like to drive on the lead side when we're in there. So just know that where you might, again, that righty drive coming from X, all of a sudden there's a quick crease play. We don't want the single standing on that sideline. Single might have the best view of everything, including crease and goal, and lead's got that push call. So again, just realize as single, we have to be decently mobile and being willing to come in and out as needed on that. Quick pause for anything, questions? All right, so again, just our quick settled restarts on items. So again, as we see, lead has got, again, anything within that corner, generally lead can take, and then all the end line, we call it that coffin corner. A lot of the times is where if single wants to take that restart or lead, just communicate it when we're in the corner on that. Trail should have all responsibility for calling that out of bounds on the sideline on the bench side. Again, if we want to give it to the lead because they're by the pylon to reblow it in, that's great. Same thing on the trail side on terms of midline, especially over and back. Again, usually easiest for them. The restart, again, we might want to communicate where we are. I'm a big fan on transitions of getting the single down to the pylon. Don't hang back out by the GLE. It's a long way to run, and the ball travels a lot faster than we do. So as trail, I like coming over, chase your partner down, but just a couple areas as we can see. And same idea with any of the restarts on the bottom there. We then get into face-offs. I say this the same way as I say it to any times that I am the crew chief on any of these games and I talk to the face-off guys, is that there is a lot of things that haven't changed this year, a ton. The majority of things haven't changed. Is that it's still down set and a whistle. We still got to have everything out of the neutral zone. We got to have everything left of the head, including our feet. There is no knee on the ground. We cannot be in motorcycle grip. We cannot be on the plastic. We cannot have the helmets on the neutral zone. I think I already said that one. We have to have both hands tightly gripped around the cross and both hands on the ground. And you need to have 6 inches of tape on your stick. That is a contrast and color of your gloves, your stick, and also the shaft. I think that's everything. That's a lot of stuff. That's a whole bunch of stuff, right? None of that has changed. What did change this year, and it's not as bad as you might think it is, I promise you. The biggest thing that we have, they want a pause in between set and whistle. That is the number one biggest change in my opinion. We are not going as fast as possible, whereas down set feet, down set feet. It's now down, set, and then we get a whistle. That's the biggest thing. We can now back out. We can be stationary, or we can be moving when we blow the whistle. We want to try to say set when we're stationary. I like saying set when I'm still out of there. I back out a step or two, and then I'm blowing my whistle while I'm moving. The additional part that comes in, and the great thing is this is the exact way we do the high school face-off. So we're just adding it back to the NCAA face-off. We can now verbally or physically adjust them in between down and set. So in my last example, down, white, move your stick, let me see tape, move your helmets out of the neutral zone. Gentlemen, we are set. Tweet is how we're going. That's the biggest change. And I'll go through what I mean by, I always say we can be neutral in our talk. I think has worked really well for me this year and our crews this year. You don't have to say white, move your stick. You can say, I need you top to stop. I need to see tape. I need your helmets out of the neutral zone. And we can be neutral. And I tell them in the pregame faceoff, if I say something neutral, don't expect it's just the other guy cheating. Both of you move. And sometimes I'll have both of them move their helmet. White's good, blue's not good. Both of them can still move out of the way a bit and clear it up so they get the message. If we have a face-off violation, and I use the term if it is an actual face-off violation, meaning the players are still clamped or immediately thereafter the clamp, or once the ball is loose, then we have a field violation. But if we have a face-off violation, the player can remain on the field, continue playing for as long as they want, but they're ineligible to take the next face-off. They can come out for the wing. They can go down on offense or defense. They just can't take the next face-off. And so there's differences of loose ball holds and pushes that happen outside. But again, if we have quick clamp, a player then hooks their arm and we have a hold while that player is still clamped on the ball, we have a face-off violation for a hold. Becomes white ball, blue 7 is now no longer eligible for the next face-off. The last bit that we have, and then I'll go through on the technique side. The last side is that we're using this picture. Kevin's nicely featured here, but this is a great example of when players come out and before we say down, they have to have their stick and their cross above their knee is what they want. They don't want them leaning over. They don't want them hunched to the ball. They want them standing up. And what the definition of standing up is, the cross has to be above their knee is what we need. They also cannot touch the ground before they go. So what you're seeing some face-off guys do, very few actually do it in a correct manner, but you're seeing them touch the ground and then get to the spot. They want them going straight to their spot. This year, we have just coached them a ton. We've reminded them over and over again, stay up, stay up, stay up, stay up. And the same thing we reminded them when they touch beforehand, Either one of those, if that becomes a violation, that is a delay of game and does not count for a face-off violation because it happened before down. Coach them through it, especially at the prep level. So what we mean then by techniques, if we have a face-off violation, if I call the face-off violation, let's say I'm the face-off official and John is my helper, and I go tweet, tweet, tweet early and I point, I'm going to say, John, blue five, blue five, blue five. And then we're going to say it to the trail official. So let's say that's Dick. Dick, blue five, blue five, blue five. And then it's the trails official to remind the bench. Say it a ton of times. We've gotten to different conversations. If you feel confident putting in your scorecard, great. That works for you. Some people have suggested we tell the table and the scorer. I don't necessarily trust them, not saying they're doing bad, but again, it is a short scenario that occurs. They might not pay attention. It is the crew's responsibility to try to remember that. We have to remember if that player comes back on the faceoff and they're running out, chase them off before they get there. It is not a delay game until that 20-second beeper goes off. Or if you say down, do everything you can to chase them off. We want the players facing off. That is the goal. I also remind in that pregame, it is your teammates' responsibility to make sure you don't go. You know when it's a faceoff violation. You know when we say blue five, that's you. Make sure your teammates don't let you go back out. And like I said, remind them constantly of this. It'll become muscle memory. The last 2 points, again, you're seeing more of the face-off officials go back to that straight 90 or that 45. We're not seeing them on the line, just like where Kevin is. He's at a 90-degree angle. Go where you're comfortable. Helper, go where you're comfortable. We've seen a lot of 90 and 45 or 45 and 45. Go wherever you like. And the biggest key for the helper, be safe. Do not get run over. Pay attention to the wing lines. Make sure you know who's coming, when they're coming, and be stationary.
Rod, just a quick point.
Yeah,
I've got
go
a
ahead.
question. This applies the face-off player not being able to take the next face-off. This applies to games with a shot clock. For games that don't have a shot clock, which are usually lower level games, we're going to let the same guy take the face-off. They're not going to be penalized to be ineligible for the next face-off. That is a rules difference within the prep schools. Non-80-60 shot clock, they can take every face-off.
So then move to shot. I'm just going to do a very brief refresher here because none of this has changed this year. The one note I like saying is that if you look in the book, they have the old symbol that we no longer use. So it's a double symbol. We are only using 60 and we're only using 80. You will see in the college game, there is a third symbol that occurs. I really like it, to be honest with you. So we have a 60 and we have an 80, and you will see a hold symbol go up. So one finger straight in the air when it hits the pipe to tell the shot clock operator and all of your partners, I have a reset, but I don't know which one it's going to be because depending on the team that's going to pick it up, I'm now going to give a 60 if it's the offense, or I'm going to give an 80 because the defense picked it up. But I like the 60, especially as a crew, because when it touches that goalie by a hair and you said, I have it, and the ball goes out of bounds, and one coach is screaming and the other coach is screaming, and your partner's looking at you, and you have your hands in your pocket, it doesn't look great. But now it was, hey, I had it hit the goalie or it hit the post. Now it's out of bounds. Yes, we do have a 60, and I'm already communicating that. So again, we have on every change of possession, it resets to 80. After a face-off, they get an 80 clock. We hold it until there's possessions. The game clock starts, but the 80 shot clock doesn't start until we have a valid possession. So even if the ball goes past the restraining line and we play, we still wait on the shot clock. A valid shot clock that the offense retains in their defensive half is 80. Play-ons reset it. That's why we're keeping play-ons short. 61 or above, it goes to 80. Same thing once we kill a flag down slow whistle. If it's 61 or above, we reset it to 80, and we do not reset it when the flag down portion occurs. Once the whistle blows on that side. 60s, again, valid shots. That's retained by the offense in the offensive half. Again, a valid shot's got to be above GLE and hit a pipe or the goalie. Anywhere on the field, it doesn't matter if the goalie's in the crease. If we have a play on below 60, and especially it's regardless if the play on has a whistle or not, we still reset it. And then again, if we have a time serving penalty on that flag down slow whistle scenario, once we blow the whistle, if it's under 60, we reset it to 60. Now, one of the ones, we'll have a test question on this, and this has been confirmed by every level of the chain, is that the shot clock reset actually takes priority over a flag down slow whistle in terms of time. What I mean by that is if a player is running down the field, I have the ball, John slashes me, I throw a flag on John, I shoot the ball, and the goalie makes the save and catches it, I have a valid shot that hit the goalie. It goes to 60 seconds. And now that goalie, this is a no argument portion of our show, by the way, and now that the goalie has possession, I now kill it, and it kills the flag down slow whistle. So in that scenario, even if I shoot with 75, or if I shoot with 70, or if I shoot with 50, the goalie makes a save on a flag down slow whistle and retains possession, it always resets to 60 seconds when we resume play after adjudicating that penalty. I'll pause there. That is the actual answer. There's no discussion on that. I promise you, every person is all agreed on this. That is a confusing one, but it's a scenario that occurs. We also see the scenario. Last year we had less arguments. This year we've seen no arguments. But if a player, the most likely scenario, a face-off player, wins the ball, goes on a fast break, the shot clock starts at 80. They take 5 seconds, they run down the field, they hit the goalie, and it goes out on the end line, and they retain possession. They lose time, and it goes to 60 seconds because the offense retaining in their offensive half after a valid shot that hit the goalie or pipe, it goes through 60 seconds every time. That supersedes everything else. So they do lose time in that scenario. So the other side also makes sense. If we have a time serving penalty, we have an uneven scenario, and let's say that team retains possession throughout a period or a half, the shot clock stays where it was at. So if a team again gets a flag, there's 3 seconds left on the clock, the team decides to hold it. We have 1, 2, 3 seconds tick off, a horn goes, a whistle goes. We now get to the second half. That team now gets to start with the ball in the same area, just on the opposite side of the field. The shot clock should be at 57 seconds. If it started at 60 and we lost 3, the game clock goes to 15, 57 in the penalty. If it was a 1 minute slash, 57 in the shot clock. None of this has changed. This is all exactly the same way it was last year and even the year before that. John,
Can you
anything?
just explain?
Go ahead.
Can you just explain attack defenseman's clearing the ball, gets slashed by attackman, flag down, the clock's at 70 seconds. Slow whistle, we go down into the offensive zone, the shot clock goes below 60, defenseman loses the ball, the other team picks it up, we kill the play. Where does the shot clock go? Does it go back to 60 because you're below 60, or do we go back to 80 because they were clearing the ball when the guy was slashed?
Yep. So when the flag down, we go when the whistle blows. On the play on, we go when the play on happens.
Okay.
Thus why we have a very short play on in the NCAA rule book. The flag down, we just go, and wherever the shot clock ends, a good tip, if you have a shot clock operator, tell them not to reset it when you blow a whistle. Wait until your signal, right? So that to your point, we now talk about the slash. You come over to me, Rob, I saw a slash on white 7. I go, great. I can glance at the shot clock and see there's 41. And I go, good. White 7 slash 1 minute, shot clock to 60 seconds. And we're good. Good question on that one.
Hey, Rob, what's your take on the prep schools, the quality of the shot clock personnel?
Super mixed. I think is a very good answer, and this is a very good lead in. I'll be brief on purpose, and I think it's a pointed question on purpose. They're very mixed. My personal experiences, I actually find the students are better than some of the adults. Not in all schools. The students care and the students are actually focused because they got a job today. The adult who comes in sometimes had 11 things occur during their day, their head's in a different space, and they zone out actually more than the 14, 15, 16-year-old. And I'm not saying this happens all the time, but I've just seen it kind of work both ways, where the adult kind of feels overbearing. And the other side of that, remember, our shot clock operator goes off of us. In other sports, they get to be an official. In our game, they have to wait for hours. So it's actually a very easy job if they simply just watch us. Where we see the most trouble is they try to officiate on their own. I think that hit the goalie, so I'm going to reset it to 80. And now you have a whole bunch of issues that occur, right? So I'll leave it at that to that point. Work with them. Ask them if they've done it a whole bunch. We had a scenario the other day. I'll be very brief on this example. The administrator assured me that this person has worked dozens and dozens of games, and I didn't need to talk to them. And I said, okay, not a problem. So I went up and I introduced myself. I said, how many games have you done? And they said, this is my first time ever. They keep getting me confused with the other person. And I said, not a problem, right? But it's still, don't take people's word for it. And it was two students working the clock and they just mixed the student up. And again, I might not have talked to them if I listened to the administrator. Take an extra minute and get them straight. And even if they've done it 50 times, give them a refresher. That's totally fine. It's not, we give Naramore a million refreshers, does shot clock all the time, but it's nice to know what you're doing as a crew because it might be slightly different than the other crews. Like I said, I like showing them that one finger up because I do that. And I know I'm going to do that on my crew and I'm going to try to get my crew to do it. So I like explaining that stuff. Super good. Good all
Rob,
around? Yes,
just
go
going
ahead,
to
John.
mention one thing very, very quickly. The part at the bottom of this where it says carries, the shot clock carries over if possession to start the period, right? That's not the situation, right? When there's a flag down that ends the period, then you're going to have to determine what the clock goes to. This is just a situation where there's an uneven situation and a team has possession at the end of the period.
All right, our quick ones on play on, same techniques. The only thing that changes is we add a shot clock. Again, I like keeping my play on short, right? If we know the team who got offended is about to pick it up, allow them to play. I think one Mississippi max is the way I like teaching this. Again, if it's 1.5 Mississippi, I'm not going to argue you, but I've seen more go wrong with longer play-ons and I've seen things go right, if that makes sense. So again, in that scenario, we have a play on, a tweet, 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 loose, push, white, shot clock to 60. It needs to be muscle memory in what you do. In the other scenario, play on. Again, I just like saying white ball, shot clock to 60 is what I do. I like being less wordy. Other people might say play on, the play on is off, shot clock to 60. Either is correct. I like being short. I like just pointing and saying color, and that's it, if that makes sense.
It could
Again,
also
it could
be
be
80.
it
Just
could
to,
be I was just going to say it could be 60 or 80 depending on where it is. If it's above, 61, we could have 80 on that. That's fine. I just use 60 as my examples. The 4, so this is the not shot clock rule. So Fred, this is your question that you had for we just are calling them tier 2 or division 2 and 3 for sake of just differentiating in our brains. But if the coaches and the home team indicate we do not have shot clocks, we are now playing a different rule modification. It is all NCAA rules except for 4 things, and they make a ton of sense. The first thing, because we don't have a shot clock, we are going to only play NFHS clearing rules. 20 to get it from the defensive half to the offensive half, and they need to get 10 seconds into the box and get a touch in the box. We are doing this so it is the same mechanic for us as officials. We are just not going to we have no idea what kind of rule we're going to play until we show up. We don't want to do that anymore. The prep schools have agreed. So again, no shot clock. We have the regular 20 plus 10. We are not doing any crease dives to that same point. Most of these schools do not have goal mouths and didn't play crease and diving anyway. So it is not really a change. But we are going to the NFHS. They leave their feet, jump or dive under their own volition, and they land in the crease or touch the crease. We have no goal, and that's it. The face-off change, John already mentioned it. We're not limiting that player who created a violation. They are still allowed to come back and take the next face-off. The reasoning, especially if we're in thirds or JV games and they only have one face-off player, let them face off. The goal of the game is to get the game off and get these kids reps, not to have that player feel bad because they jumped early and now they don't get to play. And so we want that occurring. And then stalling is the same. I get it in, keep it in, but we do not have an automatic stall. So to that point, because we don't have shot clocks, our counts change. We do have a stalling mechanism if we need it. We have no diving and jumping, and we have no player having to sit out a face-off if they had a violation. 4 simple things we should be able to remember when we go to those games. Everything else is NCAA. And the other point is that these are the things they modified anyway when we went to those games. When we went to Hampton Hall or Cheshire Academy or Suffield Academy or Williams, these are the things we modified anyway. So we just codified it so everybody knows what we're doing ahead of time. Questions on this? Go ahead, John.
One quick point. There are some small prep school varsity teams where you may get to the game and the coach says to you, we're just playing NFHS. Just all NFHS. That is fine. We have no problem with that. We're very accustomed to using that rule set. So if they want to say we're going to use all NFHS, no problem. You got it. But if they're playing NCAA and they don't have an 80-60 shot clock, then they need to follow these 4 rules.
Hey, the other quick point.
Go ahead.
There's no mercy rule. Because we figured that, mommy and daddy came out to watch little Johnny play 3 hours away and the games were already 10 minutes. So there is no, if it's 15-0, it's just stop time play.
And that was what the prep school said they wanted exactly. And
Right.
all these things that are on this list are all things they wanted or insisted on. Yeah.
What if the coaches agree to run the clock?
Beautiful. We need more of them.
Yeah, work with. I always steal the John Matthews line, right? We're a service organization, so that
Right.
point, right, is listen to the coaches, right? Don't be overbearing. Especially again, we're thinking for most of these, this is going to be when that occurs. It's a JV or a sub game, right?
Yeah.
If it's 23-0, it's raining sideways. The kids are miserable, and they said, "Hey, we're going to do a 3-minute fourth quarter." Listen to them. Right? Don't jump up and down and celebrate either, right? But listen to them, to what it is of, you don't need to be there. No, they need to play 7 more minutes. So again, just use common sense. It's a great question. Use common sense, but also make sure on these levels we're not cheating them out, right? Because sometimes, again, if it's 12-0, the other kids on the bench get to play. So that's important too, that we give them a couple extra minutes.
If a lower prep school has a 80-second clock, but doesn't have a mouth and doesn't have this and that, some of those things, how do you treat the time zone?
We can do same time, same thing is almost all of them. There was very few that didn't have a goal mouth last year. They have all said they're going to have goal mouth this year. If you find out that it doesn't, let us know, and then just modify that no diving rule. So it's just no diving, and then we just play regular 80-60 and all NCAA rules. We just take out diving. One of our other officials, we actually had that even in a college game where they didn't have goal mouths and didn't play diving, and they agreed before the game because you have no goal mouth. So the goal of all of this too, and not to restate and oversimplify this, but is just to get rid of. We got to a point last year where we were playing rules from 2015 and 2018 and 2022 and 2024. And then you go to the next prep school and they play different rules than what you just played. And it was a mess. So the goal is to just get everybody on the same page of let's find something we can agree on that doesn't substantially change everything we're doing. It just makes a lot of sense, and it's easy to do. Just as a refresher, John has got the sheet on the Google Drive with all the differences. As we said, they go in importance order on the sheet, or most common to occur, generally speaking. Just to run through the 12 that I think are the most important, or the ones that I kind of try to discuss in pregame. I generally don't remember all 12, but as a crew, we try to talk of, again, a quick refresher when we go to the field. Okay, what's different than NFHS to NCAA? First thing is the counts. Do we have a shot clock? Yes or no? If we don't have a shot clock, we have regular counts. We're good. Dives are different. We have dives in NCAA when we have a shot clock. Face-off violations, they can stay on the field, but they cannot come back out for the next face-off. And again, in NCAA, they want them standing above the knee. So it's something we need to remember. The other major thing is in the NCAA, the goalie does not get 5 seconds to get back in the crease if they were involved in the play. We can restart it right away. Timeouts it should be under the restraining line, but over the restraining line the whole way is where they can call a timeout, right? Also, that defensive team who's not entitled to a possession on a technical foul cannot get a timeout. They're not entitled to the ball, so they can't have it. Helmets are different. Again, it's a technical foul in NCAA. Second flag is not a goodies or a flag down slow whistle. We keep it rolling on a second flag in college. We can have as many flags as you like. Try not to get there. You get my point. We don't kill it immediately. An illegal cross is still different than NFHS in terms of penalty. In NCAA, it's still a 3 minute for a stick, 1 minute for a pocket. In NFHS, it's 2 minutes for everything, non-releasable. There's no mercy rule in the NCAA, meaning the clock doesn't run if we get 12 or higher. We don't have stalling within 60-80 because that's why we have a 60-80. We do have stalling if we have no shot clock, and it's similar to the NFHS. In the NCAA, we do not have the terms defenseless player or targeting in our rule book, or blindside, so do not use those. And again, in NCAA, there are no eye shade rules. And I'm going to leave it at that. Questions, comments before we do our test review?
Could you just go over the defenseless player targeting that's not in the NCAA rulebook?
It is not. We have either indirect, direct, or we have excessive or flagrant contact. That is it. There is no defenses. Yeah, to the head or neck area.
Unnecessary.
Yeah, now again, as a crew, we might use those terms, but we are not using those terms to the coaches or the table because it is not in the rule book. The onus is on the person being hit to protect themselves within reason, right? And as we talked in the clinic, the onus at the high school is on the hitter not to hit somebody who may be in a vulnerable spot. So the onus changes, right? And again, it doesn't mean you might not call it you can still call it 2 minute or 3 minute within the college game. That's fine. We're not saying don't do that, but we don't have that exact specific terminology where in the high school game, if we feel are defenseless, we start at 2 minutes and we can go to 3. If it's targeting, we start at 3 and we talk ejection. In the NCAA, we do not have that terminology, nor those definitions, nor those penalty restraints.
You can still have an ejection, though.
We can.
All right, thanks. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Good. Cool.
Yep.
So again, Google Drive's got everything. There's differences. I'm going to show you the sheets super quick. We're going to go through the exam. The same 2 rules. We did super awesome on NFHS exam. High five, everybody. 2 ground rules. No shouting out the answer. I'm going to ask other people to read them. You don't have to read all the answers if you don't want. But again, you can give it, and then I'll give any comments, or John or Dick will jump in. And again, our goal is not to get in the weeds. I appreciate you staying on a little bit longer than what we expected to get through. But our goal is not to spend 20 minutes on each question. Make sense on all that? I'm going to unshare. Now I'm going to move everything around. Give me half a second here. We're going to stop recording.